Why the Kolhapuri Chappals used by Prada is a case of cultural appropriation. What exactly is cultural appropriation? How does GI tag protect the traditional crafts and what are the limitations associated with it? In a recent International Fashion Week, Indian, Maharashtrian Kolhapuri Chappals and similar designs were shown as the part of Italian brand Prada in the part of the line that they were bringing in. And this is a classic case of cultural appropriation. Now, what exactly is cultural appropriation? Today, we are going to understand that. We are also going to understand the protection that Kolhapuri Chappals have in the name of GI tags and what are the limitations to that protection that they have been used without any credit by an international brand. Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are going to understand not just cultural appropriation, GI tags, but also the limitations associated with them. Now let us begin with understanding the controversy that is in front of us. So the controversy is nothing but very basic thing that a Italian fashion brand, a very famous one, Prada, showed sandals in its fashion week and they had a very close resemblance to Kolhapuri Chappals. Now these Kolhapuri Chappals, they have a GI tag and they are known for the production of both states, Maharashtra as well as Karnataka. So basically I am talking about the region of Kolhapur, Belgaum. This is the geographical indication tags that comes from this particular region. We'll be getting into the details of that. Now the problem with this showcasing or the close resemblance that has been seen is the fact that there has been no mention of the Indian origin, there has been no credit that has been given, and that has led to an outrage that we see in front of us, where the artisans and Indian origin makers, they are talking about that how this particular usage of the design that comes originates in India in a particular region and there has been no acknowledgement that has been given. And because there has been no proper acknowledgement, there should be a fair compensation for that. Now, as I started this whole discussion with the fact that this is a case of what? Cultural appropriation. Now, what do we mean by cultural appropriation? Now, let me give you an example here without getting into the definition first. So, let's just say if a foreigner comes to an Indian wedding and wears a lehenga. Now, this is cultural appreciation. Now, doing something that fits into the element of the place, time and understanding. However, let's just say the same foreigner uses this Indian attire in a Halloween party for a altogether, that is what is cultural appropriation, and basically it takes away the cultural elements without any acknowledgement or giving credit, and it also encourages stereotypes. You have to understand that it encourages stereotypes. So whenever it is done without any deep understanding of the culture, of the origin or the significance or history, and basically it is disrespectful to the oppressed, marginalized, radicalized group. And this action of this Italian brand is being seen in the similar context. It is more of a case of cultural appropriation than the cultural appreciation. When we are talking about cultural appreciation, the person gives the acknowledgement, the credit, and they have a very clear understanding of the cultural elements, history, background, where they're coming from. So when we talk about this particular case, this is something that is not new when we are talking about Indian origin GI tags, Indian origin cultural artifacts that are being culturally appropriated. Now, for another example, Banarasi border motifs, they were used by a very known brand, Christian Dior, in one of their item lines as well. But again, no credit was given and a lot of outrage happened back then. So this is the whole issue that surrounds it. So why it becomes important for you here to understand cultural appropriation and cultural appreciation. We have distinguished both of them. I hope you have clarity in here. Now let us move to understand geographical indication tags or the GI tags. The reason we need to understand them better is that Kolhapuri Chappals do have the recognition of GI tags. Now, why GI tags are failing to give them the compensation they require, but they might be able to get the credit for the same. So, in the recent letter from the same brand, there has been recognition has been given that they were inspired from Kolhapuri Chappals, but there has been no talk about fair compensation as of now. So we need to understand what are the things associated with GI tag. So let us start with what exactly is a GI tag. So when I talk about a GI tag, it is a basically form of intellectual property right. We will be distinguishing between intellectual property right for individuals and community as well, so that we get it that how they are different and how there are limitations associated with that as well. So what it does, what this particular GI tag does. So it identifies goods originating from a given specific geographical location or a specific region, and they are identified on the basis of certain qualities they have, or the reputation, or the characteristics that are associated with that particular specific origin we are talking about. And this tag in India has a proper framework associated with it, and similarly Kolhapuri Chappals have this GI tag from Maharashtra and Karnataka, and it was given in 2019. Now a proper legal framework exists for the same, where it is governed under an act, that is GI of Goods Registration and Protection Act of 1999, and it is administered by GI Registry, that is in Chennai. Now let us focus onto the good that we are talking about, the Kolhapuri Chappals. So basically they are handcrafted leather footwear which are made without using any sort of stitching material or nails, and they are distinct and open-toed. They are jointly registered by the artisans of two states, that is Maharashtra and Karnataka. Basically the regions, as I said, Belgaum, Kolhapur, Balgaon are associated with that. Now, if we talk about the origin of Kolhapuri Chappals, they have origined back in 13th century during the rule of King Bijala and Baswana. And basically they are a epitome of symbolization when we talk about rural craftsmanship as well as sustainable fashion, which has been passed through generations. And at present, the controversy is also heightened because of the fact where these Kolhapuri Chappals are not sold for more than 1000 rupees. Prada was going to charge 1 lakh for a pair. So this is also what calls for fair compensation, where you are not even giving credit, you are not recognition, and the amount that will come from the work that has been done will also go to a global giant itself. Now let us look into the protections that a GI tag gives to a particular good or commodity. So the first protection that it gets is the exclusivity. That means the only artisan or the cooperative, they can use the name. So if any other shop or not that is not belonging to that specific region, let's just say they are situated in Kanpur, they will not be using the name, for example, Kolhapuri Chappals. They will not be talking about it. They cannot use that particular name. Now, this also offers a legal recourse. That means if there is any misuse or misinterpretation of GI tagged goods, there is a proper legal recourse which is available for it. And it also definitely helps in preservation of cultural identity and traditional craftsmanship which has been orally passed over generations, and it exists in the given specific region. Now the problem here is that it does offer protection, but there are certain limitations applicable with GI tags, because of which we are seeing the present situation wherein we are finding that there might be availability of credit or recognition in this particular case, but fair compensation seems very bleak as of now. So let us look into the limitations. So it cannot stop the imitation. It can stop the misuse or misrepresentation, misinterpretation, but it cannot stop the imitation. Only it can be prevented if the name is being used. So in this case also, Prada never used the name Kolhapuri Chappals, and that's why it cannot be stopped. Second, there is no provision of monetary compensation if GI name isn't directly violated. So Prada never took the GI name, and that's why there is no scope of monetary compensation as well. Other than that, it does not protect the style, pattern or cultural symbolism the only protection it gives to is the origin linked naming. So if we are not talking about Kolhapuri Chappals and if the name that has not been used, then it is not going to be a problem. And the last thing that is a limitation is that GI tags are non-transferable and non-licensable, just unlike the trademarks. So herein the transferability, for example, if it is going from one specific region and it is gradually expanding, so the transferability does not exist and there is no proper licensing available with it. So that is why at present in this particular context only, we see that this particular case, those artisans, makers will get only the credit, but there will be no compensation. It seems like a part of intellectual property rights, but it is very different from patents, trademarks and copyrights, which are specially for individual innovation. Here we are talking about community. So on just this technicality that the product was not named Kolhapuri and it did not claim any Indian origin, specifically GI laws, geographical indication laws, cannot be enforced especially for compensation. The best thing that can be done in this scenario is only the credit that can be asked. Now I'll bring you the point where we discuss that how IPR, trademark, patents, they are individual centric and the community driven artifacts, the community driven craftsmanship is being let down here. So if we look at the current IP laws, intellectual property rights laws, we will find that they are individual centric. For example, they are meant for only individual creators or inventors and they need something new. They require proper documentation and they need a finite protection period. So whenever we will talk about trademarks, patents, they will be given for a certain duration, let's just say 10 years for example, or 20 years. So whatever is the protection, that will be given for a defined protection period. But when we talk about communities, for example, just we took of Kolhapuri Chappals, we have to understand the traditional crafts do not fit in here because they are created not by an individual person, rather they are created by a community. There is no formal documentation present because they are passed orally and by practice through generations and they already exist in public domain. So Kolhapuri Chappal cannot be tested for novelty, that it is something new. It has existed in public domain and they can clearly fail the novelty test. Now, because I have made this clear in terms of the limitation of GI tags and I have also highlighted that how the communities, especially when we are talking about traditional handicrafts, lack that protection, you can understand that how this rural craftsmanship, even after being sustainable fashion and modern and usable as well as affordable, they do not have that protection which is needed as of now. So what do we do? What is the need of the hour to correct this? So when we are talking about need of the hour in terms of protection, definitely there is need for a stronger safeguard. That means there needs to be an international law, especially on traditional knowledge, where we are talking about intellectual property rights in the domain for communities, in the domain of the traditional artifacts, traditional craftsmanship, and national level registration for traditional handicrafts, traditional crafts needs to be pushed. More than that, there needs to be focus on ethical fashion practices. For example, prior permission, proper credit and partnership, fair trade certifications, cultural credit as well as compensation to the artisans. As I just gave an example of the difference between the amount, for example, average price of Kolhapuri Chappals are less than 1,000 rupees and it will be going out through Prada at the cost of 1 lakh. And this difference is the which marks the need of not just the credit but also the compensation to the artisans which are actually putting in the effort keeping this particular art alive. And the main key to actual safeguard is the public awareness. So it is the public awareness, the outrage in this context in this particular incident that has brought this to highlight for the people to see. So consumers need to demand transparency in terms of sourcing and put acknowledgement, especially for craft heritage, at the prime point. Now that was all from my side. There have been multiple questions with respect to your exam, be it prelims, be it mains. So it becomes important for you to understand all the dimensions and facts related to it. I hope you are clear. If you have any doubts, you can put it down in the comment section. Thank you so much.